that okay?
Yes.
All right, great. And we're live streaming. Okay, great. So what we're going to venture in on is get this idea of getting back to basics for your better brain health. So questions along the way, I welcome them. I'm not going to be looking in the chat function very much. So, but if you want to put them there, that's fine. Or if you want to raise your hand, I'll try to stay as current with the questions as we can go. This typically is about a 30-minute presentation itself. And so should be plenty of time for conversations and dialogue. So thanks again for being a part of the discussion today. There we go. So I don't know about you, but one of the things I've heard, I've been in service for 20 years with older adults. And one of the things I've heard consistently is that the fear about getting older is tied to losing one's mind. And I thought early on, 20 years ago, when I came into this field in service, I was really excited. And I thought, everyone wants to live to 100. It's going to be great. I can do a lot of good things here. And I started to ask folks, older adult audiences, I said, well, how many of you want to live to 100? And I was really surprised that most folks were not raising their hands. And I thought to myself, what's going on here? Like, I can't wait to get to 104. Like that's where I want to get to, double the number of cards in the deck. And that seems right for me. But then I started to listen to what the feedback was about. And it was two major factors. One was people really having fear of not having enough resources, running out of money, and therefore not having choices. And then the second was, and this not one was more than the other, but the other one we heard a lot about was, I don't want to be in a position where I don't have my mind. My cognitive capacity is really important to me. So that was really an eye-awakening moment for me. I just understand that not everyone wants to get to 100. And certainly there's a lot of fear around some of these elements, especially around losing one's cognitive abilities. So just to set the table a bit, you're in this journey right now, many of you, but this is the demographic transitions that we're going through as a country right now. Really important to keep this context in mind, this and the next slide in mind. It drives so much of what our discussion's about today, but certainly what will be our discussion for the next 20 years. We're in this moment right now where we're actually just about to double the number of 75-year-olds in our country over the next 20 years, which is exciting. I mean, that's fantastic. I love when people get older, get to celebrate their moments. I think it's fantastic. And so just recognizing that we've got a really big growth pattern going from below 20 million upwards of over 40, close to 45 million between now and 2040. Anyone surprised by that? So this is the other graph, which is really telling from my vantage point. This is the caregiver support side of the equation. So if we're getting doubling of the 75-year-olds in our country, but we are not doubling the number of people who can provide care and support for those older adults, we're going to be in a bit of a pickle. And we're there already. I remember this is before the pandemic. In August of 2019, we had an article come out about the caregivers in Maine. Anyone live in Maine in this group? I didn't hear any Maine voices, but okay. So in Maine, they were talking about the fact that they could not find caregivers, and people are literally leaving the state because they cannot find care providers. And they were concerned, if they got into a point where they needed care, gosh, there's no one there to provide care for them. And this article in Washington Post talked about the fact that even at $50 an hour to pay the caregivers to come in, people could not find care. And so this is getting reflected again and again. I had a colleague, a good friend of mine, who went back to Minnesota, went to rural Minnesota to try to support her family. She's in the field. She's been in the business, so to speak, for years, and could not find caregivers to hire, even though she was willing to pay a lot. And this is going to be our issue ongoing. We're not going to be seeing a huge growth of new births occurring anytime soon. We've seen 3 years of our lowest birth rates. And so we've got this huge population of older adults coming, but we don't have a huge population of caregivers to come around. And not a political statement, but just the reality that when we started to close down immigration pathways, we lost a tremendous amount of resource and potential for folks who could be potential caregivers. So that's coming back in line right now. But it's going to take a lot of time for folks to trust that coming back to the United States is a good pathway for them. We see it front and center. Our Goodwin House, which is our parent organization, faith-based, not-for-profit, been around for over 50 years. We sponsor a lot of folks for citizenship. In the last 3 years, we've helped 90 people on their pathway to citizenship through our Goodwin House Foundation. So we're really intimate with trying to bring people to the country, helping them get citizenship, and the importance, because we rely on those folks to provide services, just like you would rely on them to provide services. So with that in context, introduce you to my mom. And this is Wendy Liebrick. And so born in Portland, Oregon, just about to celebrate 55 years come November. So there's 3 of us. I'm the youngest of 3 children, 7 grandchildren, 3 granddogs. That's always important to note. And then the factors, right? You can do a lot for your health if you are physically active. My mom walks every day. She's very physically active, socially active, college graduate. She doesn't smoke, and she's not a big drinker. These are all factors that play into folks with cognitive decline. And I'd say the number one part of that is, again, movement, right? If you were to ask me or Jessica, my colleague, what's the most important thing people can do for their brain health, it's getting that movement every day, at least 20 to 30 minutes. So that's my mom. And in 2011, gosh, it seems like yesterday, but 2011, now coming up on 10 years ago, my mom, actually right around now, my mom was repeating herself, and she was forgetting her conversations, getting lost in familiar places. And we had rolled out all these other factors. You could have vitamin deficiencies. You could have urinary tract infections. You could have a lot of factors that could be in play. None of those were in play for my mom. She was just on a cognitive decline. And it was really starting to scare my dad. And certainly when things start to impact your daily activities, that's when you're transitioning from what is known as mild cognitive impairment into more of a dementia zone specific, and Alzheimer's disease being the largest known dementia that we talk a lot about as a field and certainly as a country. So pretty scary. By this time, I was 9 years into service to older adults, and I had no solutions for her, which is frustrating because there are no cures for dementia. There are no cures for this kind of circumstance. And we know that dementia itself is not a normal part of growing older. Like, that is not a guarantee. Even though the growth of dementia, and specifically Alzheimer's, is rapidly growing, we're going to be folks that reach 85 have a 50% chance of having some type of dementia. And we have 50 million people in the world today that have some type of dementia, and that is going to triple, go to 150 million people by 2050. So that's a lot. That's a lot of folks. This is that curve and what to watch for, right? So we have a really good sense of where you are at preclinically before folks know that you have it, before you've been diagnosed, so to speak. This MCI, which is mild cognitive impairment. And then you get into the true dementia, the impact of your daily life. And I really appreciate the preclinical part where at the end, at the bottom there, it's a stage where the patient knows, but the doctor doesn't, right? Because even with dementia, even with the changing of brain function, your wisdom doesn't really shift away, and your smarts don't really go away. So if you're able to pull the wool over the doctor's eyes, for the 20 minutes you get with the doctor, no problem. Then you get into this mild cognitive impairment. This is where my mom was for certain back in 2011, having these cognitive changes where she's repeating herself, finding herself in a known place, but feeling lost, not certain how to get back home while driving. That's a really scary moment, as you can imagine. and is starting to impact her daily life, activities of daily living. And then that slippage, about, within a 5-year period of time, people, and there's about 10 million people in the United States, is estimated that they're in the MCI category. Over 5 years, almost 40% of those folks are anticipated to transition into full-on dementia. So if you know that you're there, either preclinical or at the mild cognitive impairment stage, it's really important to do whatever you can to try to stave off this idea of dementia coming on full and strong. And just to make sure that we're all on the same page, and hopefully none of you just ate, so I apologize if you did, and we're taking a look at brains here, but this is a disease, right? So this is not something that, you just think about it and it's not a big deal. There's physical changes that are occurring in one's body. And so you can see this difference of the normal brain size versus an Alzheimer's brain. You literally have a shrinkage by almost half of the brain size. And you have a shrinkage of key areas like the hippocampus, which is one of the last areas to be developed in the brain, but is critical for the formation of new memories. And so when you have dementia, various dementias, and certainly Alzheimer's disease being the most prevalent, you're starting to see these physical changes, these physical manifestations. And it's something that, again, we have no cure for. And now you start to, you're thinking, you're planning, you're remembering, all become really tough. And oftentimes people will get into dialogue and say, well, gosh, I just want, they're my loved one. I want them to make the decisions about their next steps. And you realize that as you get further progressed in dementia, their decision-making is really hard for a lot of people. And not to make it so dire, one of the thoughts that is out there, one that I definitely ascribe to, is that in order to prevent Alzheimer's dementia, we don't need to figure out the cure for it right away, in my opinion. And instead, if we could just delay it by a few years, call it 5, call it 10, call it 15 years, then we can let life and aging occur and something else can knock us out. But it won't be because we don't have our cognitive abilities. And that seems like a really good option, right? If losing your cognitive abilities or your brain function versus not, I'd rather keep it and have heart disease or something else come along and take care of me quickly. And I think most people would ascribe to that as well. So without a cure, we still had not given up hope for my mom. And that's just something that's really, really important. I realize Jessica's probably looking at this. I have to change one element of this, but my mom took a test in 2011. That's when we knew she had some issues. In 2012, I came to a conference and was introduced to a program out of Japan. And once seeing that program, I had never seen it fully, but understood some of the values. They've been working in it for almost now 25 years in Japan. But the essence of what I took away was, gosh, if I can get my mom to read out loud, do handwriting, do some math, she might be able to improve, and do this every day for 20 to 30 minutes. And so miraculously, within a month, my mom started to just wasn't repeating herself. She was not forgetting things, and her getting lost factor was gone, all within 30 days of her consistently, day in and day out, doing a combination of these reading out loud, handwriting, and math. And then I was grateful for that. Obviously, that's extra time with my mom for cognitive abilities. That's the only change we made in her life. We didn't make any other shifts in her lifestyle. So this was the thing, this approach. And I was having a conversation with a colleague who said, "Oh, Rob, this is fantastic that you're doing this for your mom. What are you going to do for our residents?" I was serving at an assisted living memory care community at the time in Seattle. And so at Aegis, we created a whole curriculum around this called Aegis Brain Level Engagement. And then fast forward, moved to Maryland and had a lot of discussions around, what to do for a broader community. Like, okay, so we saw really good results with Aegis, same thing that my mom had experienced. Now I was seeing in my residents with assisted living and memory care. within a very short window of time, sometimes as quick as 2 weeks, but typically a full 4 weeks of people spending 20 to 30 minutes a day, reading out loud, doing handwriting and math done quickly, their symptoms would really subside. We had folks that were starting to eat better, sleep better. I had a gentleman who did not recall his main caregiver's name, who, by the way, is his sister. But after just a couple of weeks of going through this regimen, could recall his sister's name. I mean, that's a powerful emotional moment, as you can imagine. And so we, fast forward to 2019, we're heading in the midst of a pandemic. We're starting to have challenges, and we decided that we didn't know pandemic was coming, but we knew that we had some brain health work in front of us, and we created the Stronger Memory curriculum, specific and unique for older adults, with the right fonts, with the right way to do things. When I worked at Aegis, I spent a year developing that curriculum with an occupational therapist, a lady who was just receiving her doctorate in occupational therapy, who happened also to have been a teacher abroad. And so it was a great combination. And so we worked on a lot of details, which now in hindsight probably shouldn't have taken a year to figure out, but did. And then in 2019, having this curriculum, I said to Goodwin House, is the organization I serve as the president and CEO of. We have about 950 residents living in 2 communities, and we have about another 1,200 people that we serve in our general community in Northern Virginia. And I said, look, I'm happy to give this to you, Goodwin House. Our family's happy to donate this curriculum, as long as we can get it out to as many people as possible and have it for free. And so in June of 2020, we posted the curriculum online, and you today can get the whole curriculum for free. I'm not trying to charge anyone for anything. And the reason for that is we've seen the power of this with my mom. We've seen the power of this with our residents. We know that when given a tool for hope, that people should have the chance to utilize it. So we put that up. That was right after we had done some trials with the curriculum specific at Goodwin House. We had residents both at both of our communities, and mostly couples. And we saw the power of the curriculum. We saw folks whose brain function was improving right in front of our eyes, week after week after week. And we started that in January of 2020. And then, of course, pandemic came in March. And so in April, we no longer come together, but we had a tool that we thought we could use. And so we rolled it out to a group that used the program online, and about 20 people from what we call Goodwin House at Home. It's a program for folks to stay at home, but still have the peace of mind that the service provider will be there for you in case there's a care need. Pretty unique program, about 38 of them in the country. We're the only one in the DC, Northern Virginia area, Maryland area. And so we started to have enough people utilizing the program that we caught the attention of George Mason University, which is one of the Virginia universities, public universities within the state of Virginia. And they started to do work with us. They had a real interest for non-pharmacological, so non-medication oriented solutions for coming around, or maybe not solutions, but coming around dementia, because there's no cure, but could you come around the symptoms? And they started to study our original work at Goodwin House, which included doing testing before and after several months of people using the program. And we saw a real strong consistency with people either maintaining their scores, cognitive scores, or improving for those that were able to do 20 to 30 minutes a day. And then in 2021, we were blessed also to launch, earlier this year, launch a relationship with the Village to Village Network, which is a group of village communities, people staying at home, if you will, that have about 50,000 members through 350 different chapters throughout the country. And so we have worked with 17, now 18 of those chapters. Jessica in particular has worked with those, and launched this from California to New York, up into the Boston area. So we've started to pick up a national presence, which is really exciting for us. And soon we'll be rolling this out statewide in one of the states that we're close into. So I haven't fully announced that yet, but it's coming, which we're really excited about too. So what is it? What's the program? As I said, it really is a focus on the prefrontal cortex of the brain. And the research indicates that if we can do that, again, with 20 to 30 minutes a day, we can really come around the symptoms. And that's what we saw with my mom. And, years later, she's super, super strong in her cognitive ability. She's actually, where she was playing bridge before, she's teaching bridge. She picked up Mahjong to learn that as well. And so her capacities to learn and grow have been tremendous. We have a resident that was able to write one line of a sentence, but after several weeks of utilizing the curriculum with us, all of a sudden is writing full pages of text. And it's really exciting to see that progression with people, to be able to see them getting back some of their strength and talent. Just by doing these simple, very available things for all of us, right? We can all find something to read out loud. We can all find some way to do handwriting. And the brain, the finding math, simple math, may be a little bit harder, but we've tried to make it as easy as possible through the curriculum. And this is it. Nothing more challenging or difficult than this. We have different stages. We have 11 stages built into our original curriculum book and another 5 stages of work. But this is what we're asking folks to do. Do simple math. And you may be asking yourself or looking at this going, okay, Rob, that's really simple. And gosh, that's not going to really do anything for me. What's amazing, it seems, is that by doing simple math, we're really connecting the brain in a way that complicated math does not work. And I remember with my mom a few years ago, she said, Rob, I'm starting to have challenges again. I don't think it's working anymore. I'm still doing all the things, but it's not working. And I said, okay, well, walk me through. Are you sleeping okay? Are you eating okay? How's your stress level? Because all these things can impact your brain health. And as we dissected the conversation, I said, okay, well, what about the math you're doing, Mom? Tell me about the math. Said, well, I'm doing division now, and it's really challenging, and it's hard, and it's causing a lot of frustration for me, and I'm not getting the answers right. I said, Mom, okay, time out. Please stop doing the hard division. Back into doing simple math, simple addition, and see if that makes any difference. Because we're not trying to create anxiety in your brain while you're doing this work. We're trying to create a pathway where you're going, oh, okay, remember, I can do this. This is simple. I can handle this. And so we have different stages built in. Well, within a week, she was back to feeling great, and her baseline was good. And I don't think she's gone back to that hard division since. But the reason for that, the scientific reason for that, is it works a different part of the brain, which we'll talk about in a second. And then we also provided writing prompts. Again, nothing complicated, but prompts all the same. And you may ask yourself, does doing the computer work to type? The answer that we understand is that it's a lot better to do handwriting. And just recently, another study out of Japan just came through with that as well. So if you can do handwriting, even if it doesn't look very good, no one's looking over your shoulder to check your handwriting and the legibility of it, but doing the handwriting part really connects the parts of the brain that seem to be that we want to be able to engage. And this extra value that we found from doing this work of the writing prompts is that all of a sudden we had couples early on in the pilot where they'd say, we've been married for 55 years, Rob, but we are having such great discussions now based on these questions. And now they're really spending hours in dialogue in a way that they weren't before, in writing and thinking about things. So all of a sudden we were bringing couples together. This is not a solution for marriage or relationships, but it certainly seemed to help folks to come around. And we see this as a very powerful tool for families as well. So if you have people in your life that you want to share your journeys with, your history with, these are good questions, good writing prompts to be able to do that in a fun, non-threatening way, hopefully non-anxiety producing way. And this is the brain stages. This is where the magic happens, if you will, sort of the pictures of the brain while going through idle thought versus reading a book out loud. And you can see in the red area, a brain reading a book out loud, how much of the brain gets engaged in that moment. And similarly, you can see that brain solving a difficult math problem and how much of it and where it gets impacted versus solving math problems really quickly. And I think that that's the critical path. So this is exactly the logic we followed with our program. And our program is unique, and we're working to prove out that it works as well as we think it does through the university, through George Mason University, et cetera. And so for you all, what we wanted to be able to do was make sure you had access to the curriculum for free, which we do for everybody. But we want to make sure you understood where to find it, which is at strongermemory.com. And then also, if you wanted to get, it's a little over 200 pages, almost 200, I think it's 238 pages, if I recall correctly. So it's not a small book, but a lot of that's just writing prompts, one sentence on the top, so you can write for the page. So if you wanted to download it, you can. If you wanted to purchase the book itself, we sell it at cost, what it costs us to print and ship. Again, we're not trying to make any money on this, and we've been grateful for our foundation. We do have folks that donate money to our foundation that's allowed us to pay for the creation of the curriculum, the staff behind the scenes, and certainly for the books to get created. So that way we can offer it up for free to everyone else. Jessica's contact information is here if you're interested to have a support group or a group that you wanted to take through this process. We have a full facilitator's guide and that we can send to you so that you can have a group of 5, 10, 15 folks that want to try this out for 12 weeks, 16 weeks, get into a rhythm, get into a pattern of doing this on a daily basis. And we've seen a lot of success with those social groups coming around each other. And then we also know that if you want to volunteer with us and help us with having people check in on a weekly basis, sometimes people don't have those groups that they can access themselves. So now that we have Zoom and these tools, we can offer it up on a national basis for folks and have people check in. And certainly we'll welcome your engagement there as well. And then the only other ask is to share the good news.
That's awesome. Thank you. We'll open it up for questions. I saw that Maureen put a little note in there about how you needed to share the handwriting section with kids in school these days, kids using computers.
And they're not teaching handwriting anymore, the Palmer method. So we're going to have a lot of dementia in years to come.
Yeah, we'll have to lean pretty heavy on the reading out loud, although that doesn't happen naturally these days either. And certainly the quick math, those are things, but certainly the handwriting, even block writing, we're noticing is really, really important for folks and getting all those parts engaging that brain so deeply.
I have a question.
Of course.
Thank you very much. I really love the fact of how available you've made this to everyone. So kudos to you. And one question I had was, did you ever factor in the role that music plays in the short-term versus long-term memory recall and the value of it? I mean, I know it's important and so forth, but I didn't know if you're integrating it into your program or if we should continue to do more with it.
Yeah, it's a great question. And music is really powerful. I'm a huge fan. We're actually actively recruiting for 2 music therapists, one in each of our communities right now, because we feel so strong about the power of music therapy. So with this program, we've tried to keep it really simple and really focused. And there's so many great things that are coming out, new knowledge that's coming out around the brain health. And for us, we recognize that there are a lot of things that people can be doing. What we understand very much is that keeping things simple and accessible to folks is critical. So for this program, we have not integrated a whole lot of music or any additional music. We might have asked you about your favorite song or something like that in a writing prompt, but it doesn't take away at all from the importance of music and the soothing power of music. I've seen it with folks that who are very, very disgruntled with different types of dementia, and all of a sudden you put headphones on with their favorite music, and you get a very different response. And music seems to engage a lot of parts of the brain, not just one part of the brain. And so it seems to have a very positive effect, even late into the dementia process, from what my experience is.
Thank you very much. I like the idea of keeping it short and simple, and then maybe integrating music and a different type of therapy on a different day or a different part of the day or something.
Yeah. And this should be, we talk about this a lot. We have, I had a resident at Goodwin House. I was having lunch with a group of residents, and this was an independent living, so you're not needing additional care. And one of the residents said to me, "Rob, this is great, this program that you have, the stronger memory, but I don't have any cognitive issues, and I don't really need the program." I said, "That's fine, that's great." She said, "But I do read the Bible every day." I said, "Oh, okay." And she said, "And I've been reading the Bible out loud ever since I learned about your program. And I have to tell you this, ever since I started reading out loud, my focus is so much better." So, that's the fun thing about this, is you don't have to use stronger memory. We don't care how you get there. If you want to read the Bible out loud because you're already reading the Bible every day, fantastic. If you want to read the newspaper out loud, and because you're already reading the newspaper, great, do that. We know that by doing the effort that you'll see, we think you'll see some really positive impacts. Can't guarantee it, but overall, we think people will see really positive impacts.
I think that's really powerful that you say that, and I don't want to take up everybody's time, but it just likens me to remembering when my child was learning how to read, or when I was learning how to read. We do it together, and we do it out loud. And I wonder if that somehow, I mean, you're smarter about this than I am, activates a part of the brain that renews that kind of learning, goes back to how we learned how to read, and we sounded it out, we visualized it, and we were doing it with another person. So
yeah, there's a lot to that for sure. And this whole effort of our program of Stronger Memory is to find easy pathways to engage the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus, as I understand it, are two of the last elements of your brain to develop. And so there's something to it, getting to connect with the basics and back into what was something that you were doing back in first grade, second grade, seems to be really powerful. And so we also would never say, look, a lot of conversations about people doing tango or learning Chinese or doing Sudoku. Maybe all those are really good. And there's this idea of brain elasticity, the power of your brain to take in new information, learn new things. That's all great. And none of that is something that we are here to talk about and say you shouldn't do. But what we've seen consistently is you don't have to learn something new. You just have to reconnect with what is already there. And that's why our first title of the slide is Back to Basics for Your Brain Health. You already have all the capacities to make this work.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Ren Genser. I have a couple of questions, Rob.
Sure. Of course.
Okay, I'll give you the two questions. You can answer them any order you want. Do people plateau, and if so, after what period of time? Or is this continuous as long as they continue, doing all the things, reading aloud, et cetera, every day? And the second question is, does this apply just to people who have what I call traditional Alzheimer's disease, or does it apply also to people who have like Lewy body dementia, frontotemporal dementia, things like that? Thank you.
Yeah, great questions, Ronnie. So, what I've noticed with my mom and with the residents that we've been working with, it is a daily exercise and a daily commitment, right? So that's the hard part. But again, if you can integrate it into your daily routine, not as hard. And so, is there a plateau? One of our more recent residents, Dr. Bob Wallace, just talked about this. He was sharing that he's a renowned doctor out of Mayo Clinic, Georgetown University, and he was interested to work on the program, and he started to use the program, and he was seeing some really good results. And then he went on a trip for several weeks, and he didn't do the program. And when he came back, he shared with us that, my gosh, I feel like my brain function was not as good after not doing. So I think that's going to be a different answer for different people, but our sense of it is, and our hope is that people do get into a habit of doing this, 20 minutes a day consistently. And that's where the power certainly comes in to play. And then, sorry, so that's the key factor there. And then with other dementias, I've been on this journey for a number of years in service to older adults. And I think early on, I was thinking maybe there's 1 or 2 or 3 types of dementias. And all of a sudden it's like, well, there might be upwards of 200 plus. It's like, okay. And a lot of times you don't just have one, but you have multiples. It's like, okay, so this is getting more and more complicated. We have seen this be effective with a wide range of folks. And so that's been really encouraging with people with a traumatic brain injury, people with, Alzheimer's and other types of dementia. So I think there's no downside to this. What Jessica and I would often talk about is it's risk-free. So for folks that have these challenges, there's no harm to it, right? Especially if you're integrating it into your daily habits.
Have you seen any dementias in particular for which you haven't had the same kind of results? And also another question came to mind. How long have you guys been doing this? How long is your data or whatever has gone on for?
So I don't know if we have any specific one that it works better for or not. Jessica, you might want to come off mute and address that question.
Yeah, I don't think we have enough data to say there's one that it doesn't work well for. I will say we've had to adapt it more for individuals with Parkinson's because often the handwriting gets very difficult. So we encourage people with Parkinson's to do the reading out loud and to do the math more like flashcards. So they're quickly solving and reading the problems out loud because as that disease progresses, the handwriting can be very difficult. But we still see good results if people choose to do, 2 of the exercises instead of the combination of all 3. So that's what we've seen so far.
And then in terms of the length of study, I started this back with my mom in 2011, right? And so my focus, and Jessica knows this, has always been about let's get the answers out. Let's make sure everyone has the tools. I hadn't been so focused on the clinical study regimen of the equation. And I think we've done pre and post testing using established tests, and that's probably as far as I was interested to really pursue. But all of a sudden, with George Mason University and their interest, they really have helped us remember the importance of getting this research proofed out and available to more folks. And so they were kind enough to do an initial write-up report on with 24 interviews of folks initially. And then we have a cohort of about 100 folks now that are going through another regimented research project with George Mason University. They're reporting out on their original report to the Gerontological Society of America in November. So there's some real heft to this. And again, this has been ongoing work from Japan for 25 years. So there's a nice regimented approach that we're building upon.
Thanks so much. Full disclosure, we have a family history of Lewy body dementia as well as Parkinson's disease. So that's why I have a lot of questions because it's been rampant. Yeah. So thanks. I really appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Of course. Great questions.
Rob, it's been recognized that exercise is good for people, but 30 minutes a day can be just as effective if it's done in 10-minute increments throughout the course of the day. With stronger memory, is 20 to 30 minutes at a time best, or can it be spread out during the day?
Yeah, good question. Jessica may have more enlightenment here as well.
Yeah, so really, the key with stronger memory is that you do the exercises consistently every day, whether that's 5 days a week or 7 days a week. That's the key. So whatever works best for your routine. I would say probably about 50% of my participants do it in one 30-minute block. 20 to 30 minute block. And then the other 50% think it fits better into their day if they break it up. So really you can do either one as long as you find a way to get it in your schedule every day.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And Stacy, my mom would tell you that she definitely breaks it up. So she reads in the morning, she journals at night, and oftentimes she'll do her math in the morning, but sometimes that scoots around.
And obviously that works.
It's been great. It's been great. I mean, the gift for us of having her cognitively, mentally present for the last 9 years. When we started this journey in 2012, she had a chance to meet all of her grandchildren and be really a positive light in their life. So, the reason why we post those initial graphs of the population growing so rapidly without a lot of caregivers is that we all need to figure out as a country how to introduce preventative measures. And this is seemingly a preventative measure for the symptoms, not a cure for what's going on in the brain, but at least the preventative measure of the symptoms playing out. And so this is really that actualization of pushing off things for 5, 10, hopefully 15 years, hopefully maybe even 20 years.
Thanks.
This is great. Do we have any more questions? We still have a few more minutes. I personally like the part about the writing prompts. I don't know, some of you were on the call we had last month or the month before with my mom on creating your legacy and writing your story. What a great way to get all that information for your family history and your family story. So that was my favorite part of the training.
Yeah, Ted, that's been really powerful for folks and a great gift to give to those who are left behind when someone passes on. But just to have the answers, and there's a lot of fun questions in there too. So it gives a little levity to the moments as well.
Now you could even use those questions at like Thanksgiving around the table to stimulate conversation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've seen, Jessica, we've seen residents choosing to write, all of a sudden they just have a topic they want to write about. So we're not locking people into, you can only do these prompts, right? All of this is flexible. The only goal we have is to get people going. And I see Jessica wrote there for 12 weeks of trying it out every day. So if writing letters to loved ones is what you want to do, and you don't want to do prompts, that's fine. As long as it's handwriting. You want to write about your childhood and your own story or creative writing, that's great too. We have no issues with any path anyone chooses to take, as long as they're trying to engage the prefrontal cortex.
That's
Yeah,
great.
that lifetime commitment can be really daunting. So I always lead with, well, try it for 12 weeks, 12 to 16 weeks. And then, if you see it making a difference, and at that point, it's already become a habit. So give it a try and then decide if you want to commit to make that lifetime commitment for a healthy habit. And usually by week 8, they've decided they're going to stick with it.
Well, do we have any other questions or comments before we wrap up? I will give you a minute to unmute, but I just wanted to point out just a couple things that we have coming up next month. National Aging in Place Week is October 11th through 15th, and Gina brought up music therapy. Our closing speaker for the week is actually the head music therapist at Comfort Care, and he every day at 1 o'clock Eastern time on Facebook, he has a podcast that he allows anyone to listen to, whether you are a customer of theirs or not. So he also just presented, I saw Stacy smile, he's presented to the Triangle chapter, which is how I found him. And so he's the closing speaker for Aging in Place Week. And what a great presentation that was. He actually made a playlist just for our members too, that I'm going to be sharing. So I put the link for that in the chat box. All of our Aging in Place Week events are there. I would love to see you there. Feel free to share that with your seniors and your families and your other business professionals. It is open to everyone. Thank you so much, Rob and Jessica, for joining us. While you were speaking, I sent Jessica a LinkedIn request. My wheels are turning about programs of ways that our organizations can work together and maybe present this to some of our seniors here locally. So that would be great. So thank you both for joining us.
Real pleasure. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. And please go on to strongermemory.com and check it out. or if you don't check it out for yourself, find a friend who could benefit from it, because we know that you have a community around you that could utilize this. And our biggest joy and hope is that we have, our goal is to get to 100,000 people utilizing the program by 2023. So we've got a 2-year timeframe to do that within. And that would represent 1% of the 10 million people that have mild cognitive impairment in this country. So if we get more than that, that'd be great too. We're tracking about 1,000 folks already that utilize the program in some form or fashion. And so we're 1% of our way to our goal. So if you could help us in any way, we'd be grateful.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you all for attending today, and we will see you at a future event soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.